for joining me today. I want to thank our current EMBA students for joining us for today's panel on the Executive MBA program. I also want to thank all of the attendees who are joining us for this session to learn more about NYU Stern's Executive MBA program. Just for some background, my name is Neha Singhal. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions for our portfolio of executive programs here at NYU Stern, which includes the Executive MBA program in New York, as well as our Executive MBA program in DC. Today, our panelists are going to be focused on their experience in the Executive MBA program at our Washington, D.C. location. So Paige, Adele, and Will are all members of our D.C. EMBA community. So what I thought is I can kick it off with a few questions to our panelists, and the attendees, as you have questions come up, feel free to submit them through the Q&A feature, and we'll try to get through as many questions as we can today. If you do have some more specific questions that really pertain to your specific situation or your candidacy for the program, feel free to reach out to our admissions office, and we're happy to have a more personalized conversation around those more specific questions. So with that, let's get started. So again, thank you so much to our current students for joining me today. Our applicants always love hearing about your experiences in the program and seeing what they can learn from your journey to get here. So to start off, I was wondering if you could all just introduce yourselves, your name, title, and company that you work at, and which year you're in our program. Paige, if you could kick us off, that would be great.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Paige Norris. I'm a VP of Strategy and Insights at JPMorgan Chase, where I work in the consumer bank on personal financial management solutions. And I am in my first year of the EMBA program in DC, so class of 2026.
Great. Will, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for the time and for joining. My name is Will Sook. I'm also in EMBA DC 26. We've just completed our first semester and entering into the second spring semester, then off to summer. But Will Sook, I'm at Cisco Systems in a global partner executive role, managing our global partnerships with Apple, Google, and SAP, focused on joint go-to-market strategy and execution. Thank you very much.
Great. Then Yadel, on to you.
Yep, I can go next. Thanks, everyone. My name is Yadel Tech-Clay. I am a director with EY Parthenon, focused in our deal finance group, which is mostly focused on CFO priorities, but as well as completing any sort of support that our clients would need from an M&A standpoint, all the way from strategy to execution. So also class of EMBA DC 26, and I'm privileged to be joined by Paige and Will, who are class representatives.
Wonderful. Great to hear about your diverse backgrounds coming into the program. Will, I'll pass this on to you first. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to get here? Why did you decide to consider an executive MBA program? Why did you feel like it was the right time or the right place to be?
Yeah. So I've always had an appreciation for additional education. Initially, the plan was law school, and it wasn't just because I didn't know what I wanted to do after undergrad. It was because, and I figured I'd take the LSAT. I had a purpose to do so. At the same time, I was actually enrolled in that for a little bit, but had an opportunity at Cisco, where I've been for 9 years now. And so I don't regret that decision whatsoever. But I was at this juncture after getting married and buying a house. I figured, let's tack on another thing. But in seriousness, it was a great time. The convenience of the location was a consideration of mine. I would like to leverage it to advance in my career, either at Cisco or otherwise. Utilize the global network that NYU provides, being open-minded to potentially other opportunities. The financial acumen piece bolstered that quite a bit. Understand the entrepreneurship side of things. These are all different elements that I wanted to kind of capture and take with me as I progress in my career, whatever path that may be, Cisco, venture capital potentially. And then in addition to Cisco, I advise a startup. And so the entrepreneurial aspect is very critical to me as well.
Great. Very interesting to hear. What about for you, Yadel? Why was this the right time to pursue an executive MBA at NYU Stern?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, very similar path to Will as well, although I did end up completing my master's in accounting without, not necessarily wanting to finish it, but, ended up doing that. But I still had, the thirst to, for more education and for more growth. And I think now was the right time for me, at least, given where I am personally, but also professionally. Over the last few years, I've been tacking on more and more leadership positions in my career, and I wanted to, do the positions that I'm going into service by getting the leadership acumen that's needed to be able to be a good leader and as well as execute on the roles that I'm being put in. So it was a no-brainer for me to go into business school. I had considered part-time, full-time, but the exec just was the right level of engagement that I could have given the busy type of work that I do. So it was the right time. Employer was very much for it as well, which helps. So yeah, just right time personally and professionally. So yeah.
And what about for you, Paige?
I'm probably going to echo a lot of the things that Yadel and Will said, but getting an MBA was sort of always on my roadmap and plan. So even when I wrapped up undergrad, knew that at some point I'd want to go back for the MBA. It was more a matter of, where and what program format. So I had considered like Yadel doing it full time, doing the executive MBA program. So for me, I think the things that, it was always going to be a life goal, but for this specific kind of time and why I selected now, I think it was a combination of I had been out of school for several years, so I felt like I had enough work experience where I kind of now knew very specifically what I wanted to get out of the MBA. And I knew sort of the direction I wanted to take it. So having a few years out of school, I think helped me just to narrow in on, I'd had a fairly robust amount of work experience doing lots of different things. That helped me then get more focused on what's the core thing I actually want to get out of an MBA program and where do I want to use that to kind of further my career and maybe take a jump ahead.
Great. Thank you for sharing those stories. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is the cohort experience in the program. So we do have a small, tight-knit cohort in DC. It's around 35 students in the program. We, as the admissions team, really focus on bringing together a cohort group that has a diverse set of experiences. They represent diverse industries, functional roles, international backgrounds. But tell us a little bit about how this has played out in your journey. Yadel, maybe you can start on this one. How has the cohort experience influenced your learnings or your experience in the executive MBA program?
Yeah, really good question. Just being in consulting, you're exposed to so many, different functions of a business, all the way from finance, HR, from decision making all the way to the lowest levels, since you're kind of dealing with any problem that your clients have. So I can say I've been fairly exposed to different functions, but just being in this cohort and seeing what some of our classmates do, I was exposed to some industries and sectors that I had never been exposed to, such as defense tech, for instance. A couple of our cohorts or team classmates are in startups within the defense tech industry. I remember on our first ride back from New York, I was sitting next to a classmate who was doing this work and just fascinated and asking him questions because I had never, interacted with someone that does this. So it does open up your sphere of knowledge, and this is now something that I will put on my mantle as far as understanding what the ins and outs are in the defense tech industry, for instance. But it's more broader than just that. Our classmates have vast experience in different sectors and functions.
That's great. Paige, framing this question to you as well, if you can talk a little bit about the cohort experience, and then specifically, if you could talk a little bit about the study group experiences as well and how that's been for you. And just to share with our attendees, when you start the program, from day one, you're put into a study group. It is put together by the administration. So we bring together people with different backgrounds and skills. And our goal is that your study group is a type of support system for you while you're going through the program. We're really hoping to bring together people with different strengths, so that if there is an area where you might be a little weaker based on your professional background, there should be someone in the study group who can support you in that particular course or with that material. And then vice versa. There's going to be areas that individuals come in with where they're really strong and confident on that material, and we're really relying on them to share that knowledge with their study group. So Paige, if you could talk a little bit about the cohort and study group experience.
Yeah, I'm meeting with my study group after this, so very timely. No, I mean, the cohort experience, I have nothing but I think the best things to say about it. I feel like, and I'm sure everyone probably describes their cohort this way, but I feel very fortunate that I think we have a very tight-knit group. And one of the benefits and things that, kind of drew me to the DC program specifically is the benefit of having a slightly smaller cohort group is that you do really get to know everyone on an individual basis and actually develop personal relationships, which is obviously a key component of and like benefit of doing an MBA as the network that you're going to have for ideally the rest of your life. So, nothing but great things to say about the cohort. Similar things apply to the study group. It's been like you said, Neha, it's really nice having kind of like a designated group to go to outside of the full cohort. There's still absolutely opportunities to kind of connect with people one-on-one outside of class weekends, but having that de facto study group, particularly in the beginning when you don't know everybody as well, is just a really nice way to have a handful of people to lean on, whether it's, support for different assignments. Like everyone does have different backgrounds. So there's times where some of us in the group are much stronger quantitatively. So we're offering and kind of stepping in to help others who maybe think that's not their strength, or they didn't have a financial background or stats background or anything like that. So this is very new to them. So I think it's really nice and very supportive all around.
Great. What about for you, Will? How's the cohort experience and your study group worked for you as you've gone through the program?
Yeah, the cohort's great. Very close-knit group of folks that is further accentuated each and every class weekend. And there are often various happy hours or other kinds of social engagements, learning from guest speakers. You just have a lot of opportunity to get together with these people, despite only meeting once a month. And then you're speaking with them throughout the month as well, namely with the study group, on a variety of different assignments or just in general chatting about maybe a different subject matter for a different course. But I think my study group is comprised of a guy in defense tech, Udell. It's not Udell, but there's a guy in defense tech, as Udell was referring to earlier, a middle school principal, an engineer, and someone in accounting for a healthcare institution. And so just getting that kind of diversity of industry and perspectives at a baseline, but then seeing how they apply their background to these variety of different assignments, you get to kind of really see their perspectives on a granular level. And so just across the cohort, the diversity of industries, cultures, life experiences adds so much richness to the classroom. And ultimately you learn, I mean, the faculty is bar none, top notch. You learn a lot from your cohort as well, just through real world examples as you go along.
That's great to hear. And I think that real world piece is so important when it comes to a program like this. You know, of course, you want the theory and the conceptual background on different areas as you're going through the program, but being able to have those discussions around what does this mean for me when I go to work on Monday? How can I apply this to what I'm doing? How can I apply this to more effectively manage my team or a project that I'm working on? I always hear from students in the program that having those interactions in the classroom and seeing how concepts can be applied across different industries and functional roles is really eye-opening, because it encourages you to kind of think beyond your business unit or the silo that you're in, and really think about how these concepts can be applied more holistically across the business. Wonderful. So the Executive MBA program is a big investment in terms of the time that you're putting into it. You're managing already busy schedules. You have busy professional lives, busy personal lives as well. What were some of the biggest concerns that you had when you were starting the program or thinking about starting the program? And we'll pass this on to you.
My wife telling me that she was pregnant right after I enrolled. No, but that happens across the cohort, right? People have lives, people have families. That's something that I truly appreciate with Stern and the schedule. And like I mentioned, it's one weekend a month. And there's a lot of content that goes into that weekend with the classwork and then the assignments thereafter. It's really just a lesson in time management. If you're considering this program, it's likely that you're operating at a pretty decently high level, at least, right? So you understand how time management works. And I think, I use the calendar religiously to build in blocks for school, for work, for family. But then also, being present, I think, with your family helps them in turn support you during your time investment relative to school. And so, yeah, there are things in life, and you can manage them. And I think that Stern understands that really well. And that's how I feel about it.
And how much time would you say on average in a week do you spend focused on the program?
Sure. So I mean, it's really up to you and what other obligations you may have. So you leave class on Sunday afternoon. You don't pick it back up for another 3-4 weeks. You might decide not to do anything for 2 weeks. You'll have a lot more to do than that third week, but that's entirely up to you and based on the demands of your schedule. It really depends on the specific class thing more. There are some that have a lot of engagement in class, such as strategic communication. It's kind of like stand and deliver, knowing your audience, conveying your message clearly and accurately. There's a lot of in-class work for that. But then, you got to take home a problem set for firms and markets, which is, microeconomics, right? And so you'll have to dedicate either a solid few hours in one stint or, break it up over the course of the time. But again, very manageable if you understand, how to schedule.
Yeah, I think the once a month format really helps in terms of having these really dedicated weekends where you can be 100% focused on the program, and then having a lot of flexibility between those weekends to really schedule out the deliverables, the readings, the assignments across that month. So just to familiarize everyone who is on this webinar today, our program format in Washington, D.C. is a once a month format. Classes are held Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There are a few residency weeks that are built into the program as well. Right when you start the program, there is a 1-week orientation residency. It's actually held up in New York. And that's really designed to jumpstart the program. The first day is kind of an orientation where you start getting to know your classmates, but you jump into the program right away and you're in classes all week that week. It is a residential week, so you and all of your classmates are staying at a location outside of New York City together. You're in classes during the day. In the evenings, you're having meals together. You're working on assignments, reading, studying together. And then there's also a residency week at the start of the second year of the program. So in August, you kick off the second year again with a residency week. And then the last residency is an international residency that is a required part of the first year of the program. It's called the Global Immersion Experience. And I will ask each of you to tell us a little bit about how you've been preparing for your upcoming global immersion. But that is a 1-week tour to an international market. It is a full class, 4 credit, and it's led by a faculty member. And on these global immersions, you're on the ground meeting with different company heads, industry leaders, government officials, really a vast array of individuals who can share their perspective on different things that are going on in that market. That, again, is a required part of the first year of the program. And then in year 2, you actually have an optional global immersion experience. Most of our students do participate in the global immersion in year 2. I think it really is a highlight of the program for most students, but it is an optional part of the year 2 curriculum. So just a little bit about the program overview. Paige, I'll take this question to you. What were your biggest concerns when you started the program, and how have you been able to balance those?
Yeah, I think going back to like what Will said, it's kind of about time management and being able to balance work and personal life and school. So that was probably like my biggest concern. That said, I feel like once we kicked off the program, I found it was like fairly manageable. You definitely have, certain points of time, again, depending upon what class you're in, and whether it plays to your kind of just natural strengths or not. There's going to be periods where it's a little bit more challenging. Maybe you need to invest extra time into understanding the material. And then you'll have some courses where it just comes more naturally to you. So it doesn't require the same level of effort. But I think, again, biggest things like what Will said, time management is key. I also think just making sure that you are kind of communicating and setting expectations with the people who are going to be supporting you while you're going through this process. So that could be, people in your personal life, your family. I would also say with work, like again, it's a little bit, everyone's work situation and employer situation is different. But for me, I was very much like, this is something that I want to be fully invested in. And I kind of made it very clear to work, like, hey, Fridays once a month, I'm not going to be reachable. I'm going to be in class. Like, obviously, if there is an emergency, you can call me. But for the most part, like, I'm going to be focused on my studies and kind of just like set that boundary.
That's great. And Paige, this actually addresses a question that came in through one of the attendees. And the question is around how far in advance you started having discussions with your employer about the executive MBA program, and how did you frame those conversations to really get the support that you needed for the program?
Yeah, that's a good question. And my situation is, I don't know if it's unique, but I actually started a new job. So I started working at JP Morgan Chase probably a month before I submitted my application for NYU, I think, or was starting my application. So I waited until I had actually been accepted to the program to start that conversation. But I essentially approached my manager about it. I probably went a little overboard, and I think most people don't need to do this, but I put a whole pitch deck together about all the benefits that, I would get out of it, the growth that I was looking for, the benefits it would bring back to the company. And then mostly we just kind of handled it from there. We escalated it to the managing director who kind of oversees my department. But for the most part, they were super supportive, excited for me to kind of embark on this journey. I did also sort of have a sense of I did a lot of research just to understand, were there other people in my company who have done this? How did they approach it? What was the conversations like? What does it look like just from an HR policy standpoint? So I'd say anything that you can kind of have in your back pocket, or just understand, is there precedent for people in your company doing this? I think that's helpful. And then I would say probably the sooner the better, so that you can plan. But also for me, there wasn't a ton of lead time because I started a new job. I just was very cognizant of the challenge for me was I didn't have any real brand or credibility yet at the company because they didn't really know me well enough. So it was sort of just like trying to tread that line.
Yeah. It is tough when you're starting at a new organization and then you kind of have this ask out there. So I understand the challenges. What about for you, Yadel? How did you manage the conversation with your employer and really make sure that they were on board and supporting you as you embarked on the program?
Yeah. And just like Paige mentioned, my situation may be a little bit unique as well. I had actually roped in my employer early on, even at the genesis of me wanting to go to business school. One of the first few things that I did was to talk through it with my coaches, mentors, counselors at EY, and EY has a 100% scholarship for folks that are selected. So I naturally I had to involve all my um, you know employers and whoever would make the right decision. So similar to what Paige did, made sure that I had all the inputs into them wanting to sponsor me, right? So with that naturally came the creation of boundaries for me to be able to um, you know participate in the program, once a month on Fridays, being able to, being off on Fridays and go into, do classwork on campus. And, in consulting, you go from project to project. So at each project, you got to talk with leadership and your teammates and level set on boundaries on what you need as far as support, but as well as the type of time off that you need to be able to do the work. One of the things that was a little hairy for me was the GIE experience, and being able to take a whole week off sometimes can be daunting. But starting the conversations early on is always great. So that's a piece of advice that I have for our panelists today.
Great. So actually on that topic of the GIE, you all have a GIE, a global immersion experience coming up. I believe it's to Dubai. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you've been preparing for the experience, what some of the pre-work has looked like, and what you're doing to get ready to be on the ground in that location? Will, can you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dubai has a pretty incredible story in general, being that about 60 years ago, it was rather poor and kind of a remote fishing village. And now um, it's a center for trade, finance, logistics, entertainment, etc. And so the objective for this GIE is to explore questions like, how did Dubai achieve this transformation? What influenced this social, political, economic development of Dubai, and UAE at large? And what are some of the economic growth strategies you use, and these sorts of things, right? And so as part of our pre-work, we got into our study groups and identified or were assigned a particular area of the economy. My group focused on an environmental issue, and we selected air pollution. And so we went into depth on that, built out a slide deck that has since been compiled into the other slide decks from all the other groups. But as previously mentioned, DC 25, the class above us, I think all but maybe 3 are coming along. And so prior to the long form slide deck that we ended up preparing, we had like a poster slam deck, a little short 4 slider. And after after the second class one evening, all of DC 25 and DC 26 got up and presented 2 minutes on these slides. And so it was really helpful to kind of just create that, cohesiveness with those that we may not be as familiar with in DC 25, kind of see their presentation style, but also learn about Dubai. And so that was a really cool way that NYU was able to kind of bring us together. And yeah, and I think we've got a book to read as well, City of Gold, it's called. I've read a little bit, Yeah, I'm not quite done yet, but I'll get there.
Great. I'm sure it's going to be an exciting trip. And just to share our acronyms for the program, we refer to our cohorts as the year of graduation. So when Will was mentioning DC 25 and DC 26, those are the first year and second year cohorts for the program, the class that's going to graduate in 2025 and the class that's graduating in 2026. They're coming together for this global immersion experience. Yadel, can you talk a little bit about the post global immersion outcomes and what the deliverables look like?
Sure thing. Yeah. So I believe as far as the GIE is concerned, and similar to what Will mentioned, it's been very helpful pre-GIE to get this type of exposure to Dubai. I've been to Dubai a couple of times. I thought I knew enough about the UAE, but the poster slam sessions really got me, up to speed as to what we will be discussing when we go there. We'll be speaking to government officials, business owners, CEOs, etc. So that equips us to know enough about Dubai to be dangerous and ask the right questions based on what we've been learning so far. And as far as the outcomes are concerned, we'll have this type of global experience under our belts, and we have some follow-up classes and a summer immersion again that we'll have this summer, which will kind of solidify our learnings. But yeah, super excited about this trip and looking forward to it.
Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. What about for you, Paige? What are you most looking forward to as you embark on the global immersion?
Oh, that's a tough question because I'm obviously very excited about kind of the market immersion experiences and being able to actually meet with businesses and leadership kind of that's based in Dubai. And I think we are doing a day trip to Abu Dhabi as well, which I'm excited about because I have not been there before. So I think part of it is just the learning experience, obviously, and being able to kind of immerse ourselves in the business environment there. But then part of me is also just very much looking forward to going to Dubai with like 30 of my friends and professors and getting to experience that with them. And I know a lot of people are kind of either adding on before, or adding on after, and kind of planning different sightseeing excursions together. So I think it's going to just be a very well-rounded, enjoyable experience.
And I will add that, obviously the global immersions are very much rooted in the academic experience. You're doing pre-work and post-work when you come back based on your learnings. But when we bring the alumni together, or whenever we ask them about their program experience, that is kind of the highlight from the program perspective, the network perspective, the personal growth perspective is really the global immersion experience and the relationships and insights that they were able to build through, being abroad with, again, 30 of your hopefully closest friends by the time you're done with the program. So on that note, there's a question that has come in about the curriculum and how you've been able to apply what you've learned in the program to your day-to-day jobs. Paige, I'll pass this on to you first. Have you seen tangible learnings or results that you've been able to take back to be more effective in your role?
100%. And that's, I think, one of the benefits of doing the executive MBA format is that it's real time. So yes, you're concentrated in class weekends once a month, but I always feel like every Monday I'm going back to work, there's something new that I'm bringing with me that I didn't have kind of like in my pocket beforehand. And I really thought it was going to be some of the more like quantitatively focused courses that were going to be like the biggest immediate takeaways for me. And there certainly have been elements of that, but I actually think strategic communications, which was a course that we took in the fall, was probably the one that, like, even before we actually met for class, just based on the exercises and assignments that we were doing, I saw very tangible benefits to what I was just dealing with on a day-to-day like work level. And I will say that professor has also just been extraordinarily helpful and offered actually, he offered the whole class, you know, if you ever want, I'm here to meet with you one-on-one. And that's something that like I've taken him up on since the course has ended and met with him periodically just to say, you know, hey, here's the challenge that I'm dealing with in my work environment now. This is what I've tried communication wise. This is what's not working. And we'll basically adjust and kind of tweak, like, here's the new strategy for you to employ. So that's been really fantastic.
What about for you, Will? Tell us a little bit about what you've been able to, I know you've had a diverse career. You mentioned some of the things that you've touched on. How have you been able to take your learnings into some of those spaces?
Yeah, I was going to speak to strategic communication as well. Um, and maybe I'll just double down on that. And, we focus not just on what we're communicating, but how to tailor that message to the different stakeholders. And whether that's executives or cross-functional peers or external partners, we practice a variety of different things, including delivering tough news with clarity and empathy, which is also an important element. And it's had an impact on my role at Cisco, where I often have to present complex ideas to global partners and internal leadership, and was able to leverage that and what we learned to kind of restructure a relatively high stakes negotiation with Google Cloud. So it made it more clear, compelling, and easier to act on. And so that was really tangible for me immediately. And so it allowed us to become more intentional about how we show up in conversations in general. And then there's some, more hard skills coursework that, you can be more dangerous around a balance sheet, right? After accounting class, which is important and, baseline for in a lot of cases. So on and so forth. But the answer is yes, very much so. You can take what you learn on Sunday and turn around and use it on Monday.
Great. Yadel, you came in with a pretty technical skill set when you came into the program. What have been your key areas of learning through this experience?
Yeah, really good question. For me, came in with master's in accounting, economics background, as well as a CPA. So the technical piece I did have pat down, but what's been really eye-opening for me, and funny enough, like over lunch or this last class weekend, I was talking with a few classmates thinking about, what has been the most impactful class. And for me, two come to mind. The first one being professional responsibility, where, Professor Bruce Buchanan, I think, was probably one of the best professors I've ever had, although it was for a little bit. Just walking us through what it means to be responsible in this world, taking a step back to understand context as to why things operate the way that they operate, and the implications of things changing, and the different scenarios that could occur as this industrial complex operates as efficiently as it ever does. So it's been a really eye-opening class for me, that one. And then secondly, leadership and org with Anat Lechner. Again, very, very impactful for me specifically because, as a leader, especially in a professional services firm, always looking ahead, right? Always looking to the future, what's coming ahead. And part of being a leader in an organization is peeking above what the rest are doing, instead of, yes, you got to execute on your detailed day to day, but got to peek ahead and look at what's coming in the future. And one of the things that Anat has been, really harping on is AI and the implications of AI for all of our industries. And that I've been armed with enough, to be dangerous in conversations with clients, et cetera. So yeah, very, very impactful, and wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's great. I just wanted to add that one of the great things about the Executive MBA program is that the faculty we have teaching in the program are actually selected and invited to teach specifically in the Executive MBA program. And so what we really do is pull the best of the best from the Stern faculty, really amazing thought leaders in different fields, faculty members that have that theoretical perspective, but have also worked with different organizations, consulted across different industries, and can share some of that real world perspective as well. And there was actually a question that came in about how different is the EMBA program from a full-time MBA program. So just wanted to address that briefly, and I'll start on this. In terms of the curriculum, our curriculum is actually very similar across our full-time MBA program and the EMBA program at NYU Stern. You take the same number of credits. It's 60 credits, whether you're doing the full-time program, our part-time program, or our EMBA program. And you graduate with an MBA in general management across all of the programs as well. So it's the same degree. I will say where the difference comes in is really on how the faculty teach in the program. Obviously with the full-time MBA program, it is a group of students who come in earlier in their careers. They have less experience and expertise at that point in their careers, whereas our EMBA students have a wealth of industry functional knowledge that they come into the classroom with. On average, our students have about 13 to 14 years of work experience at the start of the program. So they're really experts in, their fields, the companies that they're coming from, and can bring that perspective into the classroom. And so I would say our faculty really rely on that. They rely on each student to bring that perspective in, to be able to share trends in their industries or what they've seen going on in their companies, and use that to really deepen the discussions in the classroom. I don't know if you guys have felt or seen different aspects to it in your experience, but I know a couple of you mentioned that you were considering full-time programs as well. Have you been happy with your choice of pursuing an executive MBA program from the curriculum cohort learning perspective versus a full-time program? And I'm actually going to open that up because I can't remember who mentioned that they were considering a full-time program as well.
Yeah, I think Yadel might have been exploring it as well, but definitely I'm very happy with choosing the EMBA route. I feel like it's just better aligned with what I wanted to get out of the program. I like that, I can apply what I'm learning on the job. I don't have to like go to school for 2 years and then kind of wait to figure it out. I also think there's an element of, it's a little bit of a different, I think, maybe more collaborative learning environment, because we are already all employed, like we're all working full-time in addition to doing school. So not that people aren't looking to pivot and potentially find new roles, but you're not in school full-time and then having to kind of stress about getting a job and getting placement after graduating. So I think that kind of probably shifts a little bit of the experience as well. And I think a positive way that you're really there to learn. So even how like grades are structured, like it's not about getting an A in the course, it's about making sure that you understand the material and you understand how to apply it in your day-to-day job, either now or in the future. And then I think the last piece, and I don't know for sure because I'm obviously doing the full-time program, but I do get a sense that even just in some of the ways that the professors have kind of like taught the class or how they interact with students, there's much more of a lens of like understanding that we are full-time working adults who have personal lives outside of school. So I think there's more of a recognition of like, I'm teaching a classroom of like working professionals, and that's different than I'm teaching a classroom of people who have worked for, several years, but typically are a little bit earlier in their careers. So I think there's just a different dynamic there.
Great. Yadel, anything to add there? You were also considering full-time programs. Have you been happy with your choice of doing an executive MBA?
Yep, for sure. For me, one of the things that was very important was the opportunity cost of leaving work and going full-time, on top of what Paige mentioned. But, I did go to class visits for, full-time, class visits for part-time. And what solidified for me was the level of conversation, the topics that were discussed in the exec program class visits were the ones that I wanted to be part of, geared towards leaders that are already there and that want to solidify their skill set and sharpen their um, you know the, sharpen their knife essentially, for lack of a better word. So yeah, no regrets at all as far as what I've done.
Great. I know we're running low on time, so I'm gonna kind of throw out a final question. If anyone does have any additional questions, feel free to submit them through the Q&A. But I want to end with, as prospective students are thinking about the executive MBA program, do you have any tips or any advice that you would give to someone as they're really starting the journey of trying to figure out whether this is the right next step for them in their careers? And Yadel, maybe I'll start with you for this one.
Yeah, I think with anything, I always go towards the why. Like you really got to solidify why you want to do this from the get go, because it is a commitment, and it will require you to sacrifice your time, energy, potentially financially as well. So really understand why you're doing this and determine the outcomes, right? Like what are you trying to get out of it as well, so that you're able to have a framework, a guideline for how you interact with the coursework, but as well as how you interact with your classmates to get the best out of it based on the genesis of why you want to do it. So really solidify your why, and don't deviate from it, because it's going to get easy when things get rough during the course year. It's easy to just not do the homework until last minute and whatnot, and you're not getting the most out of it. So just have your why early, and don't deviate from it.
Great. What about for you, Will? Any piece of advice that you would share with someone?
Yeah, I think it's what you make it. Right? Like you can decide to fully immerse yourself or not. And I think that if you decide to pursue an MBA, it would behoove you to fully immerse yourself in the coursework, in meeting with your peers, in engaging with faculty, in utilizing resources such as there's something called career advancer stories, where alumni come back, and I just sat in on a call about an hour ago for there are 3 folks on the panel such as this one, and the different centers and anything like that, right? And um, you don't necessarily have to search out for these things. The administration does a really fantastic job of making known what's available to you should you decide to pursue these add-ons. And yeah, they might be some additional time commitments here and there, right? But ultimately, this is what you signed up for. It's what you're here to do, is to create this opportunity for yourself academically, from a networking perspective, and ultimately, blend this academic rigor with this collaborative community. And I hope that these words can somewhat inspire to see Stern as a place where you can really grow both personally and professionally.
Paige, I'm going to pose this question to you, but a little bit differently based on a question that came in from one of our attendees. And this is, if you had to start the program again, what is something that you would change in your personal or professional life to make sure your journey is successful?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's anything I would necessarily do differently, but one thing, like if I was starting the program now, like a piece of advice I think I would give to myself is, like Will said, there's just so many resources and things that this program has to offer. So I think taking and like carving out time to really understand what are all the different resources, and like what are the different things that you can take advantage of as a student, and then like making a plan for, like, you're probably not going to be able to do every single one, but pick maybe like the top 3 or top 5 and then commit to it. Like if it's like, I'm going to go to X number of alumni events a month, like, and stick to it. Or maybe it's, I want to really, like, the NYU Business Library resources are insane. It's amazing. So like maybe it's, hey, I am working on a research project at work. We have all this supplemental material that's extremely expensive that we just get access to for free. Well, tuition, but you know, like we have access to it. Like I'm going to carve out half an hour every week and go through the materials and pull different research reports that are going to like support me and help me along my journey. So I think that would maybe be one thing that I would be a little bit more diligent about early on when I maybe had more time, because the program does go really quickly. And you'll probably hear many, many people tell you that, which is also just to like enjoy it and be present because it moves really fast.
And that's what I always hear when people are done with the program, is how quickly the 2 years goes by. And, you know, to the points that you all made, there's so many resources, events, activities, you know, things that are Stern-wide that you can make use of while you're going through the program. And actually also as an alum, you have access to so many resources like our career support, which is available to you for the rest of your life as an alum, which gives you access to career coaching and career resources. Our alumni have access to lifelong learning benefits, which allows you to come back to audit classes or take short courses through our exec ed offerings free of charge. So just a lot of different benefits that are available to you, again, while you're in the program and lifelong as a member of the Stern Alumni Network. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank our Stern students, Will, Paige, Yadel. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your executive MBA experience with prospective students who are thinking about the program. If anyone does have additional questions that we didn't get to today, feel free to reach out to our admissions team. You can find our email address and our phone number on our website, so emba.stern.nyu.edu. You'll find all of our contact information there, and we're happy to set up some time to walk through any specific questions that you have. Our admissions process is also listed on our website. We are still accepting applications for the class that's going to be starting in DC in August. Our final deadline for that class is May 15th. So if you are interested in starting in August, definitely reach out to us, start working on your application. We're happy to figure out ways to help you expedite your application if you are worried about making that deadline. So thank you again. Have a great evening. And thank you again, Will, Yadel, Paige, for joining us.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye.